The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Friday, April 15th, 2016 are currently trading with gold at $1,233.72 an ounce, silver $16.21 an ounce, Texas crude $40.36 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 430 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 1865, Abraham Lincoln is shot at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Honest Abe died today in history. In recent news, 22 Texas Republican district or county conventions passed resolutions calling for a vote on state secession in March. Though only 10 responded and actually validated the passage of such resolutions, an official count should be available from the Republican Party of Texas in early May. Last year, the Texas Nationalist Movement made headlines with a statewide tour of speaking events, seeking enough signatures to get secession on the GOP primary ballot. Daniel Miller, the group's president, said that they came close, but not close enough. However, as a result, recruited and trained a lot of volunteers from Amarillo to San Antonio. Supporters of an independent Texas promote such efforts because of federal overreach, corruption, and excessive spending, not to mention the reality of Texas being large and economically independent enough to actually go it alone. And though the Supreme Court ruled in 1869 that states do not have the right to secede, secessionists are pointing out that these rulings will have no binding once a state declares independence. Federalists are warning that the federal government will be obligated to use force against such a move, since it would be considered rebellion under federal regulation. 150 federal to state law enforcement from various agencies assisted the Seguin Police Department with dozens of arrest warrants targeting Mexican mafia operations trafficking heroin and cocaine into Seguin and New Braunfels. This mass-coordinated effort, 18 months in the planning, was set in motion when indictments unsealed Friday charged defendants with a conspiracy to possess and intent to distribute controlled substances. Authorities suspect those rounded up are responsible for distributing heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine into Seguin and New Braunfels since 2010. The alleged leader of the mafia, Lieutenant, is among the people arrested. Police say that these networks supplied drugs from Austin to Houston and are believed to even have ties within the Texas prison system. It does seem police have found themselves a cozy permanent job waging the drug war. Unfortunately, these indefinite efforts will continue to remain so because of the criminalization of drugs themselves, consequently bringing in cartels, violence, smuggling, and millions of tax dollars gone to waste. This is Rick Brody with your lowdown for April 15th, 2016.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior here on the Logos Radio Network. My name is Ryan Metzel. I am here in Austin, Texas. My lovely co-hosts, friends, and spiritual warriors are still scattered throughout the world. We have Dr. Elisa Wampole in Las Vegas. How is everything there, Elisa?
Hey, Ryan. I am doing really well. Vegas is sunny and warm. Actually, it's been raining a little bit, but off and on, but yeah, Vegas is, it's all right. I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to joining back up with Andrew and David. Andrew and David, are you guys there?
Yes, hello.
Hey, how's it going over there in Sydney?
It's raining again. 5 a.m. Sunday morning. I guess it's a good time for rain. Everyone's inside, cozy in their beds, and yeah, the crops are being nourished.
Oh, well,
yeah, last night we went to a vegan cafe restaurant to meet with a friend in Sydney, and it was beautiful, starry night. There was no rain, and we went for a walk to the park at night. And the park in Sydney, Hyde Park, the main park, has these beautiful large trees and some interesting water fountains, and it was a really peaceful experience.
Yeah, it was a really nice park. Just nature and its inherent beauty. And found a possum, made friends with him and fed him a banana. That was pretty cool. And then his friend came and pushed him away and took the rest of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it wasn't the nicest thing, but I guess they get along in their own ways.
Andrew, that's funny. Most people think that possums are kind of vicious.
Really? I almost fed him out of my hand. He seemed really nice, but then David said, "Nah, don't do that."
Wow, that's awesome. Did you guys end up doing any qigong in the park while you were there?
I I guess we're always doing a little bit of Qigong in our own way, but no real concerted effort. We're just hanging out with our friend, going for a walk.
Oh, that sounds really nice. I like to get outside in the morning sometimes and do some Qigong, but Las Vegas is kind of, well, especially since we're right kind of close to the Strip over in this area where we are. It's hard to get into the nature. Although I did take a walk over to what's that place called? There's a wetlands not too far from Las Vegas. And I went over there and I thought, oh my gosh, there's all these rivers and there's water in Las Vegas. Here we are in the desert. And then I realized actually that's not really a river. That's all the runoff from the water that is being used in the city. And it's actually, when you look at it and when you smell it, it actually smells like laundry detergent. I noticed it kind of has like little bubbles like soap in it.
It doesn't sound so pleasant.
Yeah. So it wasn't as pristine as I thought it would be, but
Probably some better places to do Qigong than,
I went to go do some Qigong there, but actually what ended up happening was I met this girl who is kind of like 20 or so, and she kind of started talking to me and chatting with me a little bit, and she was actually really into her spirituality, and I thought that was kind of cool for someone who was so young. She was like 20, and she was really like on her search for her thing, and she was a little bit she was super sweet, but like a little bit overweight, you could tell. And, but she was really into meditation, and she was telling me about how she had all these amazing experiences meditating and how she was trying to, understand her intuition and listen to her guidance and all these things. And so I started chatting with her a little bit about spirituality and meditation. And I was telling her, oh, you have to try pranayama. It's really amazing. And then I kind of got into it a little bit about diet, because I could tell she wasn't really a clean eater. And I said, oh, you have to go over to this organic food store called Sprouts and check it out. It's great. It's affordable. And kind of talked to her a little bit about vegan and raw foods. And she said, oh, I really I've tried to give up meat, but I'm worried about not getting enough iron. And I kind of said, well, you just have to do the right type of supplementation and you'll be fine. And so I told her a couple things. I told her to go get some iron supplement from the vegan section and to take some spirulina. I'm all about spirulina. And anyway, hopefully I made a good influence on her. She was trying to find her way.
Yeah, it sounds like you did a good deed for the week.
Yeah. She was really great. And I ended up getting her phone number, and I don't know, maybe we'll hang out again sometime. She seemed kind of nice. But it's interesting how you magnetize people to you that are very similar. And, I always just think that in the world, there's really no coincidences. And so when you run into people, I always just figure there's a reason why you've run into this particular person at this particular time. Because it wasn't like there were a lot of people at the wetlands, and so I just figured, all right, I'm here for a reason. We're meant to speak to each other. We're meant to offer something to each other. So I sat talking with her for about an hour, and she was really nice.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's very true that all things happen for a reason, and the universe works in mysterious ways. Absolutely.
And it's funny because our show is, of course, called Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. And where that comes from, actually, it's the title of the book that David Burke and I wrote over, about 7 years or longer of learning about raw foods and spirituality. And it's kind of a documentation of what we kind of learned for ourselves to improve our health and our well-being, and also a little bit about our spiritual journey. And I think we're all on a spiritual journey. And it's funny because a lot of people don't necessarily talk about spirituality or religion or whatever it is that they believe in. But when they come around someone who they sense is comfortable with that topic and willing to share, they have so many questions. And I found this yesterday too with this. Actually, Andrew, do you remember the guy that came over to fix our computers?
Yeah, Corinthian. He was really cool.
Yeah, he's really cool. So he came over and he was like helping me do some stuff on the computer. And then he kind of said, well, I have a question. You're kind of into this stuff, and he said, what do you do when you're around a bunch of people that have negative energies? Like, how do you keep yourself in your positive mind state, even when you're in an environment where negativity exists? And it was funny because I just found myself going on and on for like 20 minutes about the topic of staying in your positive space and dealing with your emotions. And I gave him a book to read, and I gave him a bunch of things to do. And and then after he left, I was kind of laughing to myself, and I thought, well, I guess, once again, like, there's so many people out there who want information. I never really feel like I have all the answers, but when someone asks me a question about stuff, it's just like things pop into my head, and I'm like, okay, this, and this. And he was really happy. When he left, he's like, oh, great. Gosh, you gave me some great ideas, and I'm definitely going to, research this and this. And, so it's nice to be in your own space of positive frequency, and then allow other people to meet you there. And it's fun to teach what you know.
Yeah, it's like some part of them I feel is in some way able to know that you're able to help them with whatever it is that they're looking for some guidance on. They feel confident asking the question, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Most times the answer is, well, reflect on your life and what does your true self tell you the answer should be?
Yeah, it's very true. It's often a simple solution for whatever the crossroads may be for that particular person at that particular time. And I think it is just about trusting yourself to be able to make the right decision, to not get caught up in the judgments of others, and just to really follow your heart.
Yeah, Andrew, it's interesting. You're obviously, well, maybe not everybody knows, but you're a professional poker player, and you kind of followed this path to spirit through kind of an unconventional way. I mean, from poker to writing your book about the yoga of poker, what was it that kind of made you pursue spirituality?
I think poker being a game where you spend a lot of time with yourself in a meditative place, you kind of inevitably stumble across the similarities between what is more conventionally known as meditation and what is experienced through poker. So when I started pursuing yoga, not really knowing the spiritual components as much as the physical components, it quickly became apparent to me that what yoga teaches in its true sense, the union of one's finite with one's infinite, I saw that I was kind of already having those experiences. And from there, I was more coherently able to understand what actually my experience contained. So I guess that's kind of how I came to see the spirituality inherent within poker.
And I guess it's really in everything, but I can imagine, like most sports in a way, even though poker isn't physically active, it's very mentally active. And most sports, I would say also it's a mental game with yourself. So I guess when you're trying to dive into your mind, at some point you kind of reach that bridge of mind and mental activity to self-inquiry and spiritual thought, spiritual belief, spiritual inquiry. So that would make sense as to how that gap would be bridged because poker is such a mental game.
Yeah, I very much agree with what you said. It's a game against yourself. It's the more I play, the more I see that it's the internal opponent. It's you fighting to be present, to maintain focus, not to get distracted in any way. And it manifests outwardly as, playing against different people. But everyone really is truly playing against themselves in just that attempt to maintain their mindfulness.
Very true. It's the same way in sports. At the end of the day, everyone's playing against themselves. Everyone wants to attain the best that they can do. And, sometimes you have to go up against people to do that. So coming up to our first break here, more nourishment for the spiritual warrior here after the break.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
Hello and welcome back to the show. It is Saturday, April 16th here in the United States, and it is the morning, Sunday of the 17th in Australia. And we are talking a little bit about just before the break, we were talking about mindfulness, and specifically, we were chatting with Andrew about playing poker and how spirituality and mental mindfulness is a huge part of playing the game. And I was going to pose the question to David, actually, because David didn't know how to play poker when he first met Andrew, but he was able to understand the game and then be able to apply the idea of mindfulness and meditation during play to enhance the game. So David, can you tell us a little bit about how you use meditation and mindfulness for poker strategy?
Well, let's talk about mindfulness to start. When you're looking at anything around you, it's like the computer. That's your input. You have a whole entire sensory system where you've got your nose, you've got your eyes, you've got your ears, you've got your tongue, you've got your skin, you've got all these sensory inputs. And these things are taking in a signal around you. And that signal then enters into your body, and then your mind and your awareness decodes that signal into a shape, a form, a comparative memory that allows you to navigate your situation around this material matter that's around us. And in some of the Buddhist systems of mindfulness that you run into in yoga, there's many of them, but the Buddhists spent countless thousands of years working on mindfulness. It's in Zen Buddhism, it's one of the first steps. And the idea to include Zen, this art of mindfulness, according to some of the monks that I talked to, into Buddhism was they really felt it was necessary to refine your mind to find truth first before you engaged in any type of activity that could affect the community at large. So before you became, ran for president of the country, you would find mindfulness so you could make good decisions. Before you pursued being a doctor, before you pursued being an attorney, positions of anything really, they really felt it was necessary to first to cultivate your mind to be able to become aware of what's true through being able to decode reality, the signal as it enters your mind, and what's false. And the comparative being like, what is it that you truly need to survive? What is it that you truly need to live? And what is it that you think you need based off the situations around you? Because the comparative situation of what we think we need, it may not be what we truly need. When we look at commercial advertising or the sophism, when people say something they know is untrue, but they speak in such a way to try to convince you it's true, to change your opinions away from things that are actually true. And mindfulness, in many ways, are different techniques of being able to slow down and really look at the signal and have a genuine, honest comparative to know what that signal truly is, so you can truly make a honest, truthful, correct decision that is going to improve your life, and through improving your own life, having a true awareness of your own life, then you can add those new truth awarenesses to your interaction in the community to also improve the community. So an easy way to look at it, actually in Western thought, you've got the quadrivium trivium, which is a philosophy that allows you to also decode reality. And a basic thing for our listeners around the world, when you look at the modernization of the quadrivium trivium, you can really see how the minds behind the computer system understand this input, process, information, and output. Same way as the body works. You input, pull information in. Your whole entire body, not just your brain, your whole entire body processes data. And then you have an output, which is how you react or how you decide to communicate, or how it makes you feel is an output of that information. So the Western groups in Christianity had this, and going back to the Greek and Roman ideas, had this quadrivium trivium, and it's encoded in their churches. It's encoded in just their cultures. The way they communicate, manners, actually was created for the ability to listen. So when you listen to these debates on television in the US, you really see no one really listens anymore. It's just about stating your point of view so loud and so overbearing that you're not actually listening to hear what the other person has to say, because it's not about an input, discussion, and learning. In many of these interviews, it's just an output of, I'm going to be so loud that I'm not going to let anyone hear this person's information. And in a sense, that's what we really have in mass media brainwashing. It's just a mass output, wanting people to believe how it's decoded reality, but not how reality is actually decoded. And this was actually fun having Ashley as a guest, and she's talking about placebo effects and how when people believe something is false, then their body begins to take on that false truth and may develop sickness inside their body or many other conditions, and just explaining how these things are all been scientifically tested. So a mindfulness technique that is good to start, I think, is, and I tell people this one is just write everything in your mind down on a piece of paper and circle the things that are positive, the things that are eternal, and those things, the things that are actually you. When you look at human being, we, in ancient spiritual studies, we are the sound and manual of the universe. And when we look at ourselves, we can identify that, yes, the way our bodies are constructed are beautiful. We're in this perfect phi ratio. We're created with the ability to create and change matter. Our ability to self-reflect, become self-aware. We were created with nature already provided for us to make us healthy. The water, the air, the trees, the nuts, the seeds, they were created for us already before we got here. We're very unconditionally loved by the universe, the unityverse. And so when we look at circling the things that are truly there on the piece of paper and write out all our thoughts, the positive things, the eternal things, that's our true nature. And when you begin looking at the things of the fears, the limitations, the fears, the pain, the suffering, with your mindfulness, you can trace those signals back and you'll see where they're coming from. And they're usually not coming from any type of truth. They're coming from either a collective false group telling you something that's untrue because they're wanting to take your energy from you, or you're understanding your relationship with nature because you're just not seeing what is truly there. The first person who created the solar panel understood that, yes, there's a signal that comes from the sun radiating, and that signal can hit a piece of material, and that material vibrates, and that vibration releases an energy, electricity, which then can be attached to a glass bulb with inside it a gas, and that gas shakes, accelerates, and releases a signal. And it's that signal that our eyes can interpret, which allows us to, it bounces off that signal, bounces off all the different matter around them, and we call that light. Being able to see once we turn a light bulb on. But someone saw that they were already provided for, all the electricity, energy they needed was already provided for. Before, someone could have been upset thinking, oh my God, there's not enough, electromagnetic power. But we now know the whole entire world, the universe is electromagnetic. And we can have as much energy if we want to tap into that energy. And just an example of how mindfulness turns something that was lack into something that was abundant, because we're already truly unconditionally loved by nature.
Well put, Dave. Well put. Well, more with that after the break. Stay tuned.
Don't believe everything you read about radio frequency microchips or RFID. It's a stealthy technology with some shocking applications, but some plans are pure imagination. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back to separate fact from fiction.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This public service announcement is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Radio frequency identification, or RFID, is a technology that tracks objects using radio waves. Yes, there are plans to put the chips into consumer products. There's an implantable version, and governments and businesses want to use it to track people. But some reported applications are hogwash. Example, the NutriSmart RFID food system. It's an absurd notion by college student Hans Harmes. His prototype system envisions RFID tags in food to track what we eat from plate to potty. While there are ingestible RFID tags, fortunately the NutriSmart RFID system is pure science fiction, at least for now. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
You're listening to the Logos Radio Network at LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Fear.
Welcome back. This is Burke and Chewy's Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. I'm here with David and Andrew, Lucky Chewy, and Ryan in Austin. This is Dr. Lisa. I'm in Las Vegas. And we just talking about mindfulness and spirituality, and we all have our different ways of getting connected. I am going to ask Ryan about what he does. Ryan, what do you do to become more mindful, more connected, and how do you think you've changed, let's say, now versus back in the days before you were into vegan and kind of the yoga aspects of wellness?
Wow, that is a wonderful question, Elisa, and I think very pertinent for everyone. And my personal journey, which you can, I guess, read a little bit about in my book, Journey of a Lifetime. That's also available here at Brave New Books, along with your book, Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. So, be sure to check that out here. It, helps support the show, supports all of our efforts. But my journey, I again would like to thank, you, Dr. Lisa and Dave, for kind of, I think, pointing me more in a correct direction that is making my life more enjoyable and at peace. Because before I'm not doing anything drastically different, I guess, with the direction that I want my life to go. I think it's more the mindset. So the way you put that question is very good. Even before I met you guys, I was really into health and fitness and training and, wanting to be, an incredible athlete. And none of that's really changed. It was just before I was always rushing to get somewhere. And I don't think I really knew where I was going. I just thought like, I want to, build this empire. I want to sell all these nutritional supplements and I want to make myself like the greatest, most famous athlete in the world. And, just do all these incredible things. And like to get to where was always the question I never thought about. It was always rushing. Yeah. Like you're in traffic, right? Or, not as Austin can get bad. I try to avoid it, but in, LA or New York, and everyone's like rushing around to get to nowhere. And it's like you drive as fast as you can and you get there like 10 seconds above someone else that maybe drove, half the speed and enjoy themselves.
Right.
And so, especially slowing things down, all the training that, I've done with Dave and, yourself, the acupuncture and the yoga, it just really helps slow things down and allows you to enjoy the journey, hence, the journey of a lifetime, because, the present never changes. Everyone, if you're worrying about the past, then that's an issue because that's not going to change. Even if you get in your time machine and you go back to the past, that'll still be the present. And everyone's worried about the future. Like, oh my gosh, I need to do this and I need to make money and get this mansion and, go on these exotic trips and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, it's still going to be, when you get to this future place, it's still going to be the present. So if you're not enjoying the journey, then you're just, you're just completely wasting your time because it's never the end point. It always seems like the end is not necessarily a letdown, but if you haven't enjoyed the journey, I think it can be a letdown for a lot of people.
Yeah, because they're trying to reach something and that there's always going to be a future no matter what. So
to justify themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they get their one thing and then they're like, well, now I want this, and it's just this constant
everyone's
chase.
Looking outward. And maybe a good example is you take a case of, me growing up in Cleveland, but like a Johnny Manziel who, really famous here in Texas at, for playing football. And then, ended up going to the Browns and just, crashed in the NFL and now he's out partying and they just caught him recently at some mansion in LA where they rented out and destroyed the property and, doing drugs and he's just completely ruining everything because he's not enjoying the journey. He's always looking outward, like getting, say significant others to show that you're worth something or getting, friends or family or, your success to show that you're worth something when at the end of the day, just be satisfied with where you're at. And if you have goals, then know that you're on a journey and you're at point A here at the beginning. And sure, you can reach whatever you want to, but you have to take the journey and you should enjoy it too. There's no point of just setting all your goals up to something. And then if you don't get that goal, suddenly it was all worthless because I know my goals have changed significantly since, I've met you guys and, just in my own life and personal life and what I want to achieve, things change. So if you set up a one end all be all goal and you don't get that, then a lot of people look back and think that they're a failure when and not. They may have just, decided or learned new things to make their life more enjoyable. So
yeah, I was talking to a group of bankers and accountants at this poker night Andrew and I had, and they asked me, what is it that you want to do in your life? Like, what is it you want to experience? And it sounded like a few of them were trying to search for what they wanted to do in their lives. Because for a lot of people who are very motivated, they're like, okay, I'm going to complete all these courses. I'm going to repeat what I'm told. Then I'm going to get a job doing this thing because society or my parents or whatever told me to. And then they get to a point in their life where they start to have time to reflect on themselves. And they're like, I'm not happy. Or I don't really know why I'm doing this. am I supposed to be doing this? So they have all these questions, and
Yeah.
so being asked, by this group of people focusing on, the financial aspects of life day to day, I inform them, well, for my journey, in each moment, I'm just trying to make a good decision. So I'm trying to be as present as I can be. I'm trying to decode life as honestly as I can. And with mindfulness and good habits, just in that moment, make good decisions that remove from my life pain and suffering, allows pain and suffering removed from my friends and family and community's life from good decisions. And I don't know where I'll end up. I don't know if I'll be in the middle of the earth I don't know whether I'll be on a different planet. I don't know if I'll be academically what I may end up as. But it doesn't really matter. All that's just a byproduct of the true journey, which is asking yourself the really honest question of, in this moment right now, what is the best decision I can make that makes my life more whole, allows me to have less pain and suffering, allows me to rediscover and reawaken to what we truly are. And the byproduct is the new friends that you create, or the current friends you spend time with. The byproduct of those decisions is, how you affect your community and the world. But if you're making decisions that are removing pain and suffering, decisions which are positive, of good nature, then there's really not a lot of fear, because your journey is going to be one that, when you reflect on that journey, you're very satisfied with the decisions you made, and you're very encouraged to keep on making better decisions, no matter if you come up to obstacles or difficulties, because you'll be still satisfied with your life.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. It is all about the journey, and allowing yourself the mindful presence to just throughout your life enjoy each moment, ask yourself the relevant questions, and to just maintain that present moment awareness. I believe that, I think we chatted about this last week or the previous week, that all spiritual practices seem to lead to the same place of just maintaining that awareness of the present, strengthening that awareness, and expanding that awareness.
Yeah, Ryan, back to your journey of mindfulness. It's kind of interesting how you're saying you're racing to get to somewhere, but we're not sure where that somewhere is. And it's like, when you see how people drive after work, it's my time now. I'm not working. And you see people racing through traffic to where they drive very aggressively. They're very, it's almost like they feel they just got out of a painful situation and they're running away from it. But in your journey at the moment, from knowing you seem a lot more satisfied with the day-to-day moments. What is it that you see as the major differences of how you're approaching life from 10 years ago to now? And I also know, when you run into other students or people who have graduated, with doing their masters and whatnot.
Yep. Sure, Dave. Yeah, I'll get into that after the break here.
Descends to the earth, a time where the mind is defined and confined. We the people need to realign with the divine. A government for the people, by the people realigns. No more taxation without representation. It's time for the people to have their say, no longer the prey. Aligned with truth, there's nothing we cannot do. Divide and conquer lies and false promises. These are the archonic weapons of hurtful decay. The abundance of the earth is the perfect technology, and the golden age is now. Rise together as one in peace and prosperity.
Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Lucky Tree Lichtenberger coming to you live. It is Sunday, April 17th, here in Sydney, Australia. It's 5:46, and just before the break, we were chatting about mindfulness and other relevant components to having a joyful life. And David posed a question to Ryan. So, Ryan, if you'd like to answer that, please do.
Definitely. The way I certainly like to, develop, I guess, my mindfulness nowadays, as Dave got into, is more or less enjoying the moment. So I guess one example or several examples is that you guys have mentioned is, just enjoy being in nature. So I really love, there's a parkour class here that I teach in Austin on Fridays. So just, some of the local kids and parents, I was teaching some gymnastics classes and they enjoyed it. And, sometimes a lot of the younger kids don't enjoy the structure as much. So they like kind of just running around, jumping, on rocks and climbing trees. So I have a class that I'll teach there every Friday. And it's just amazing because it's not like anything there is different from when I was growing up now, but just really being present in the moment and seeing, the trees and the rocks and, conversing with the kids and then the parents and, all the kids out there playing soccer and playing football and just running around and just being in that environment. It's just so peaceful, as opposed to, I guess, before I would always train, or I have had clients and it would be more of let's get this over with so I can, have like my time like for myself where I can, get to somewhere else where I don't know where I'm going. And so if you're doing what you love and what you enjoy, which I think most of us for the most part are now, really, whether it's poker or whether it's acupuncture or Chinese medicine or, dealing with herbs or training or nutrition, I think we're all really enjoying what we're doing, helping other people and then, doing these modalities for ourselves too, trying to become whole. And it's really the little things. I really enjoy, I like going to MMA class and learning, new martial arts techniques. And then I love teaching people. I met a few girls at the gym the other day who were interested. They wanted to learn gymnastics. And so I was showing them some simple yoga poses to get more flexible. And it's really moments like that where like, you're really reaching out and helping others attain what they want to get to. That's, I really get a lot out of that. Helping other people grow, helping other people, like Dave says, relieve their pain and suffering. So it's, it's what I really enjoy.
I think you hit on a couple of really key points, Ryan, as far as just, because people ponder, what are we here for? What's our purpose? And, there's a lot of different ways you can answer that about life. But I really feel like, we're here to learn and then we're here to teach and share the good things that we've learned or the good skills or just the goodness in general in life. And healing for me is a part of that. And because we're serving, because, you're either teaching or you're serving, but when you heal someone, or help them heal themselves is what it really comes down to. Or when you share goodness, when you share happiness, when you share a hug, when you help uplift someone, when you teach something to someone, it comes back to you as a really good feeling in your heart. And, for me, that's, really the purpose in life is to just create more happiness and joy in yourself and in the world around you. And part of that is just learning, exploring, chasing after things that, not chasing, like the same way that Ryan's saying, but just seeking out good experiences and enjoying them in the moment, whatever that may be for you. And everybody has their different things that they're interested in, or, like Andrew loves playing poker. Yes. And I love doing acupuncture and healing. It's really easy to be happy when you're creating a happy space in your present moment around you, whatever that is. And usually that involves making other people feel better to me, and helping other people shine. That's what makes me feel good.
I agree with what you're saying, Lisa. And I think it's, also part of it is just connecting with the people that have similar interests to you, so that your community has similar goals and lifestyle. And it makes it a lot more exciting to live when you're around people that are very much enjoying the same activities you're enjoying, and it makes each day exciting to, go out in the world and have experiences with like-minded people.
Yeah, there's a joy when you've looked in the mirror finally, and in the reflection, you've not just seen flesh and blood, but you've seen a form that's been created that is the sound and manual of the universe. Your body is created so perfectly and with so much ability, and it's perfectly integrated into the nature around you. And you realize that everything you need was provided for you before you got here and before you got to Earth. And that magic of seeing the perfection of what was provided for you, like really understanding how nature functions, really understanding how your body functions. The joy is so magnificent, words can't describe it. And when you have conversations of others, there's a saying in yoga and the Vedic writings, it's when people become self-aware of the divine inside them, divine in all things and other people, all they want to do is sit around and talk about the divine inside all things and inside themselves, inside each other, because there's this commonality of awareness of, oh my God, look how incredible everything is, and look how joyful everything can be. And you love nothing more than for someone to see the greatness and wonder in themselves, and then see how we can all live in a life of no harm to the self and others, to exist in a high level of every aspect of our lives, whether it's academics, whether it's healing, whether it's defense, whether it's learning, whether it's friendships. All these type of things can be based on this awareness of the great natural laws. And that's another thing they talk about in the where did all the laws come from that we learn, well, we're meant to learn in school. And religious schools that are very good, you still learn these laws, the natural laws, which is the laws of how all matter functions. And the quadrivium, trivium were one of these tools to help people. Geometry, sacred geometry, astronomy, rhetoric. These are all tools that allowed you to just spend time like the Pythagoreans did, or any other learned people did, of just talking about the greatness that is within ourselves, through our bodies, and through nature.
Yeah, and that's a huge point. It brings it right back around to what we were saying with the mindfulness. Why is it important to be mindful? It's not so much that it's important, it's that it brings you so much joy to return to the source. And because the source is where all joy, all happiness, all the magic in life comes from. And, and the knowing, when you can quiet your mind and be present in the moment, then all of these kind of fearful thoughts or negative emotions or things that are just clutter in your mind, if you learn how to release those things, then all of a sudden you unveil the magic and you return to the source of joy. You return to your happiness. You return to your purpose, and you see all the beauty around you that may have been occluded by chatter or negative thoughts or racing around, and you actually stop and smell the roses and you enjoy your life. And so that's why we're kind of having this discussion about mindfulness, is because it's the key to unlocking the beauty in your life. And in my mind anyway, it's the key to unlocking the power of the universe. It's all within each person. You just have to uncover it.
There's an interesting story, one that I thought was kind of made me laugh a little. And it was a story about a monk who went to heaven. It's a Taoist Chinese story. And he was asked by, he died in his physical body and went to heaven. He was asked how he was able to maintain, basically his mindfulness, his peace and his joy when he was going through so much pain and suffering, because he was going through a very difficult time. And the monk asked the other person, he's like, oh, what do you mean I died? I left my body? I didn't know. I was just being mindful in each moment. I didn't even know there was a transition that went on. So when you look at the monk's perspective of eternity, of mindfulness, even when he left his body, when he died, he didn't know. He was so focused on just what he was doing in that moment. And when we run into obstacles,
or fear or any of this.
Yeah, when we run into obstacles, obstacles are temporary. Our lives are eternity. So and it's kind of interesting. They have a breathing technique that's used in the Vedic writings and used by you'll find it in the fingerprint of many cultures around the world. But they talk about when you breathe in, that's life coming in, like the whole world. When it breathes in, it's life coming in. And then the middle breath, the breathing breath, they call it like Brahma, meaning to nourish. It's what nourishes the world, nourishes your body. The middle breath is sustain, where sustainability comes from. It's the Vishnu, it's the energy that sustains life. And then breathing out is the Shiva, the change, which is in life how things change, like we see the seasons change. But behind all those things is the true thing, the Krishna, the divine particle, the God.
We're after the break.
David, directly from Sydney, Australia. I'm here with Andrew Lucky Tree Lichtenberger. The time here is 6 a.m. There's nothing more enjoyable than waking up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning after a Saturday night to do a show. Enjoying the time codes. I've got Dr. Elisa in Las Vegas, and we've got Ryan Muetzel in Austin, Texas. And just before the break, I was talking about these three aspects. So the idea in yoga and Vedic ideas is that the breathing in your body is Brahma. It's what nourishes you. So you can look at the same thing of cells, at what the cells bring in nutrients. You can look at what you decide to eat, to watch, to the people you talk to. You know, what are things that nourish you? And then the middle part is the Vishnu. That's what sustains you. So the idea is if you've brought in the right things into your life, you have a moment of being sustained. And then the breathing out, they refer to as the Shiva aspect, which is the change aspect. So breathing out is by letting go of things. And the idea is if you can balance what goes into your experience and then what you let go out of your experience, then the middle part, it is sustained better. And the idea is eventually to make such incredible decisions that you are able to be nourished better in each better decision, and for you to release what you don't need better in each decision also. So you can take that idea in Vedic thought and you can look at it in every aspect also of learning, technology, lifestyle. You can see that the modernization of the awareness. They're talking all about, sustainability. Oh, we need this for sustainability. But with mindfulness, you quickly see a lot of these groups may have co-opted the idea of sustainability, where now it's not about, how do our bodies perfectly relate to nature? It's all about these false alarms of lack. And the solution is always giving them more of your money, taking away more of your rights, taking away more of your access to nature. And your nature, it's like your nature, nature's nature. You're as important to nature as nature is to you. But just another example of people using the wisdoms of old to try and to interject themselves to collect the funds of the public. But Ryan, a question for you. I know in Austin you see people, Austin has a stronger middle class. It has a lot of people into natural health. Like in Sydney, there's organic food everywhere. People look at you a little bit weird when you even talk about what a GMO is in Sydney. Organic is so prevalent. In Austin, it's very much different to some of the other areas of America I've been, where people do seem a little bit healthy. They do seem a stronger middle class. It's like Austin is making better decisions. What are the differences that you've seen that in Austin where people may be making better choices?
I would definitely agree with you in that I grew up in Cleveland. I've spent time, Atlanta, Miami, Las Vegas, and I definitely would have to say Austin is certainly ahead of the curve as far as organic food and also just pursuing consciousness and our idea for the show, the nourishment for the spiritual warrior. People here, I think, are more willing to work together and utilize the community to help each other out instead of, just going to work and going there and then leaving and going home. And, that's it. Everyone here is trying to pursue their own things. So there's so many entrepreneurs, a lot of them that may have full-time regular jobs, but they all realize that that's not what they're trying to do their whole life. So whether they're starting, a small chocolate company or a local bookstore or a superfoods company or, people wanting to be yoga teachers and organic farmers and all that, everyone here is really, pursuing their passions. And I just think they're willing to work together here to allow everyone to achieve their dreams, which I think is a wonderful thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why the city is where it's at and why so many people are moving here from all over the U.S.
Yeah, it's incredible, like reading the statistics of how many people they call them economic refugees in America, is a term people are giving to it, but how many people are fleeing New York, fleeing California, fleeing Chicago, and turning up to Texas, wanting to experience this Texas lifestyle, where, when you're in Texas, there's a lot of churches, there's a lot of, spiritual things to do there. And people love music in Texas. In Austin, Texas, there's more live music than anywhere else in America. And I really think the music enthusiasm of the city helps the city with its mindfulness, because when you begin playing music, you really have to slow your mind down, or if you try to bring your voice on key, or listen to the other musicians of what they're playing and work in with the beats that they're put down or the rhythm. You really learn listening skills, and also you learn you need to slow things down and really look at that, that 1 minute piece and bring it all together coherently so everything works together. Like nothing is overbearing. There's balance. And I think these skills of learning just seem to permeate out into the city, to where the city understands we need to be in rhythm. We need to be in beat together. We need to add little variances of creativity also. And I think some of the magic of Austin, the magic of Texas, is its passion with music.
I would definitely agree with that. Music has always been, a big part of this town. It still remains that way. And there's so many local venues that you can still go to that have been around for such a long time, where, musicians come to Austin to learn from everyone else. And what I have noticed, I'm not that big in the music scene, but I have been around and I'm friends with a lot of people that are professional musicians here. And they also seem to be willing to work together to help each other out. It's not as much competition as far as like, hey, let's just get together and play, or let's jam, or let's, try to set this up. So that's definitely one of the things we want to pursue too with the Austin Universe show is, having these local musicians and local filmmakers and just everyone getting together and helping each other out to create some just incredible art where, if people work together, everyone wins. It seems to be a simple mantra, and people here in Austin definitely seem to get that more so than other places that I've been to.
Yeah, Austin is definitely, it's one of the more artistic places that I've been. And I was just telling someone earlier today, Austin is so awesome. You have to go and visit. And she was saying, yeah, I should. And it's just an amazing thing to see so much art everywhere. You don't see that in most places. It's everywhere. You're driving down the road and the restaurants and and that's what I love about Austin so much, is there's that creativity. And that's what I think is the spark of life, and the spark of joy is creation and creating beauty around you. And that's, again, we've been talking so much about mindfulness, and that's just another way to get in touch with source, is just to let the creativity flow through in whatever way. So music is one of those things, that allows you to get in touch with your authentic self and discover.
There was this former supercomputer scientist that worked at Lockheed Martin, and he was doing a lecture about competition versus cooperation. And he said in every study, and there's, I think, close to 20 studies that he looked at, every study showed that cooperation always beat competition, and that nature doesn't compete, it cooperates. So when you begin with your mindfulness looking at the groups of people who have a lot of economic prosperity, you see they very, very much cooperate together. And they're very, very unified. And then it's kind of interesting. You see a lot of the advertising towards the people through whether it's propaganda, whether it's TV, whatever it is. A lot of this is all about competition. It's like, oh, look, so-and-so is now champion of this, or so-and-so is number one at this and number one at that. And then within a small amount of time, they're not number one anymore. They're the number 3 or the number 8 or the number 7. Oh, now they're back to number 1. It's magical. But when you look at the journey of life, it's more of a journey of a cooperative movement to becoming whole as a person. There are so many aspects of your consciousness to refine, discover, enjoy. Life is so magical. But to have these magical opportunities, it's about seeing that your body cooperates with nature. Nature supports you. And in your true alignment with nature, you're supporting nature. And then in a group of people, when you are cooperative together, you're able to overcome the obstacles of life easier. And then when a whole entire community cooperates together, that was the idea of us building cities. The idea of having a country was through cooperation, we could all spend more time becoming whole, increasing our standard of living, increasing the quality of education, the quality of our community. And it's unfortunate, but, you see in pockets of the world where, undesirable envy, greed, these 5 poisons that you read about in Buddhism, or, in different spirituality and religions, they talk about envy, greed, hate. People unfortunately have these qualities, and they come into community and they start talking about lack and how we need to divide. Oh, girls get too much of this, or boys get too much of this, or this group gets this, and look at our group doesn't get that. But it's everyone's interaction with nature that is the true thing that makes us whole. It's the discovery of the natural laws that make us whole. And if these people would spend as much time cooperating together and improving their own personal life and their relationship with nature and its natural laws, there wouldn't be so much need to say, hey, everything is broken. We need this, we need that. We probably see an excitement of people becoming self-efficacious and creating things themselves and needing less laws, less interference. The true idea, what the conservative meant originally, was to let go what we don't need and conserve the center of what we do need. Be changeable, but maintain the cooperation, maintain the nourishment.
Absolutely. And we're coming up to another break, guys, so we'll be right back with Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. Stay tuned.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Fluffy Lichtenberger. We are back on the air, Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. And we've been talking about community, mindfulness, general positive approaches to life. And one of the topics we discuss is the trivium and the quadrivium. And these ancient methods of problem solving and decoding reality, I think, are worthwhile for people to be acquainted with, because in many ways they are the tools from which we're able to learn when we put them to use. So the trivium, from my understanding, is the ability to input data or attain knowledge. And trivium just means the three paths or the three ways, and quadrivium is the four paths of the four ways. So with the trivium, initially you come into contact with data or information or knowledge, and then it's processed or understood. Would be the second step of that. And the third step is to output or attain wisdom or some tangible use of that knowledge that's then been understood, and a practical way of applying it to one's life. And then with those virtues, it also applies to the quadrivium, which is the application of seeing that arithmetic, being number, is then also seen in geometry, which is number in space. And music, which we chatted a bit about, is seen as number in time, and astronomy as number in space-time. And by seeing that these are the components which make up the world around us, we're able to break down the material reality to its finest components and further understand the signals that are inherent in the world that we live in and how they affect us.
Yeah, originally this technique was where the liberal arts came from. And, in other parts of the world, I know in the US, the term liberal is used very different to what it inherently meant when you look at the word etymology. The liberal arts were these arts of learning to be able to liberate your mind, liberate your awareness. And so you could make good decisions. You can make decisions that were of value, that had truth into it.
Yeah. By searching for the truth in the situations of our lives, it brings peace to oneself, because it's cutting through the veil in many ways, or seeing beyond the illusion. And by having these problem-solving mechanisms from which truth can be born from when applied to different situations, it dramatically helps when, we just have general questions about our lives.
Yeah, people are intuitively using the techniques of the quadrivium and trivium, but it's and there's a lot of information online. You can you can look at. But once you begin understanding the quadrivium trivium, you can see why it has been held to such a jewel by all the different Christian or Catholic monks and churches around the world. It truly does give one a perspective that allows one to begin really decoding reality and seeing how to apply reality in such a way around their life that becomes very functional.
Andrew, what's one of your favorite techniques you like to use when you're just trying to get in sync or get back to your source or your mindful moment?
That's a good question. I think deep breathing really helps, connecting with my breath and feeling present in my body. And then from there, I often, in my meditations, will be able to have more awareness of the thoughts that are in my mind. And by having awareness of them, I can then trace them back to what is causing them to stem forth. And then from seeing that, I'm able to oftentimes quell the desire of the thought, because I kind of see thoughts as it's a communication from something, whether it's useful or not. It's there. It's a message to be dealt with in many ways. And often going through this process, I can then have that stillness of mind to then focus on whatever I'm doing. But having that meditative experience to clear the cluttered thoughts is very much essential for me to then be able to give myself fully to whatever I'm doing.
Yeah, and we'll go through a list right now of the quadrivium, meaning the four paths. So when we look at the quadrivium and the trivium put together, with the trivium we have our geometry, with our trivium we have our
knowledge, understanding, and wisdom.
And when we look at the trivium, we're seeing it as the three paths. When we look at the quadrivium, we see it as the four paths. But together, this is what made up originally the liberal arts, the basic thinking skills. And when we look at the origins of these things, you find them also in Plato talks about it. And it's kind of interesting. I remember in my classical classes, we never really got into where the quadrivium and trivium came from. But also you see it in some of the writings that were, it seemed that they're being used in the early Pythagorean writings. And, we see them when we go into our Western society of our churches and our communities that were built by these people. You see it in the structures all around you.
So you're saying, David, you see it in like the architecture? Physically?
Yeah, exactly. You see it in the architecture around you.
Okay, so they're building it according to the numerical philosophy of this trivium quadrivium. So they're building things in threes and fours?
Yeah, they're building things based off their ability to see things as geometry, as arithmetic, as the mathematical archetypes of life, and be able to put them in such a sequence that everything flows together with a harmonious value.
Right. So basically everything in life can be associated with a geometry, the sacred geometry that kind of builds all things. And then also the philosophy falls within the geometrical grid. And that's kind of how they're associating these two seemingly different things.
Yeah, they are associating it that way. So the quadrivium, it was arithmetic, geometry, music, astronomy. So when you look at these basic arts of learning, so arithmetic was seen as number, then your geometry was number and space. So when we create a triangle, what we're doing is we're creating a shape. We're able to express number and space. So how can we fill that space? And then when we go into music, we're seeing music as number and time. So when you put together a musical sequence, you're seeing how number is circular, how you can divide a circle up in like a clock and create hours or minutes. These things, it's how number moves in time.
And then when we go into astronomy, it's number in space and time. So it's a combination of these things. And when we observe how star constellations move, we're able to see all these aspects, but also it's how we move in life.
We'll be right back.
The fountain of youth? How about the fountain of health? Turmeric, a golden herb used in Indian cooking, contains an amazing compound that has researchers doing cartwheels. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll tell you about terrific turmeric in just a moment.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This public service announcement is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Turmeric is the spice that lends that golden yellow color to curry dishes. It's been traditionally used in Asian medicine to treat everything from indigestion to arthritis. Now Western doctors say curcumin, a compound found in turmeric, can help treat breast cancer and liver disease, reduce inflammation, and lower cholesterol. It may also help Alzheimer's disease, arthritis, irritable bowel syndrome, depression, and even lymphoma. You don't need expensive supplements to get the benefits. Turmeric is available in the spice aisle of your supermarket or as an ingredient in curry. Heat some oil in a pan, saute an onion, sprinkle in some turmeric, and add your favorite vegetable. Voila! No side effects and no prescription required. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
Chemtrails.
Live Free Speech Radio. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Welcome back. We are talking about mindfulness and decoding our reality. And we got onto the topic of the liberal arts. And funny thing, a lot of us went to college, and I went to what you would term a liberal arts college. It was UCLA. That was my undergraduate degree, college that I went to where I got my undergraduate degree. And it's funny because I remember everyone saying, this is a liberal arts school. This is a liberal arts school. But no one ever told me what the liberal arts was. And I went to school for 4 years there and graduated, and I still didn't know what the liberal arts actually were. And so that's what we're talking about right now. David has gone through and told us a few of them. David, you want to continue with the breakdown of the, how do you say it again? Quadrivium and what's the other one?
Trivium.
Trivium and quadrivium.
So looking at the Latin triv, meaning three, and the second part of the word meaning path. So it's the three paths and the four paths. And yeah, it's really astonishing when we look at the actual core center of what liberal arts was, how it was created, how it has this classical history and how important it is. It's like the pillars of what was supposed to be a higher system of learning, of expressing, upgrading your human software to be able to communicate. And then, that they've unfortunately taken the jewel out of many of these schools and turned it into something that it clearly is not. When we really get into the quadrivium and trivium, when people really begin looking online and learning a little bit for themselves, you are just kind of left in a kind of weird, bizarre place where we're not using these pillars of truth, these pillars to decode truth, in these places of learning, where unfortunately it's becoming more of indoctrination,
places of brainwashing,
of a special interest group, than it is about you being able to discover how reality works and how to be a creator of reality. But going into the quadrivium, the four paths, was arithmetic, geometry, music, astronomy. And the idea of arithmetic was the idea of understanding number. And then the understanding of geometry was number in space. So when we create a shape, how those numbers together, those coordinates, actually can hold space. Because when we look around us, if we see the whole entire universe as a signal or binary code or a system of patterns, we're dealing with how numbers move, but these numbers can
hold space, like 3 dots make a triangle.
Exactly. And, a triangle is the strongest shape. Triangles make up all things. If you understand how number and space works, of course you can build a bridge. Of course you can build a house. Of course you can build a car. And then when we look at music was the combination, which it was number and time. So if we look at a watch and we divide that circle up which allows us to have 60 seconds, we're looking at an example of number and time. So understanding timing, understanding coherence. So we look at traffic lights. If we look at how we process data, how we work as a team together, how we schedule things, how we work with the seasons for how to plant crops. Music, it wasn't just about trying to repeat a chord that someone played, which it was actually a way of thinking to allow number in time to function in such a way that you could take your civilization to, in a sense, a perfect place where there was such a coherence that society functioned in a way there is less pain and suffering. There's more abundance that people.
So it's like creating rhythm and harmony through music, or using the idea of creating rhythm, creating harmony to make everything flow smoothly together. And,
yeah, exactly. The number
create something beautiful.
Exactly. So when we look at beautiful churches or temples, these things are expressions of also number and time. When we look at from above, when the rivers flow perfectly through the mountains, it's an expression of number and time. And we're able to take those natural laws and apply them to how a computer processor works. Then we look at astronomy, astronomy being number and space and time. When we look at how the heavenly bodies move around, it's a combination of all these things. Astronomy was the idea that, in a sense, if you were to create a cosmic universe, you were going to create Earth. How would you do it? With these fundamental abilities. And then going into the trivium, we can look at it in our more approach with technology now, because people are just getting these word skills. And you begin seeing, we've just taken old mathematical language and we've just put kind of a new coat, a new paint on it. And the paint isn't very thick when you dig down, but you're looking at input and then the processing and the output. And the trivium was originally your grammar, your rhetoric, and your logic. So when we look at grammar was originally defined as the mathematical structure of language. So, Elisa, I know with you at your liberal arts school, you probably would have learned a little bit, at least in medical school, you learn a little bit of Latin and Greek. And the idea was those languages gave the ability for you to mathematically communicate one idea to the other person, to where when you spoke the word, they could formulate number and space, these other aspects, geometry and arithmetic, and create an awareness inside their mind to understand what you were talking about more accurately.
Correct. And even if you just know roots and prefixes and suffixes, you can start to deduct what a word means, even if you've never heard the word, because it's mathematical.
Exactly. And, when I was in some of my graduate school classes on medicine, you begin learning,
Western medical terminology.
Exactly. And it's in Latin and Greek. And I remember one of the saddest moments of my education was when I began looking at the words and I asked, my professor, hold on, these words don't mean in etymology the roots of what they're saying. And she's like, well, yes, we kind of ran out of words. And so the medical industry just started to combine Latin and Greek together and kind of make up new kind of whatever, combinations. And I'm like feeling like the whole world ended in that moment. And because for me, like coming from an awareness of how to build, how to create, I'm thinking we've just basically destroyed 1 + 1 is 2. But we're attempting to use a mathematical language to communicate. No wonder the system doesn't work. I was thinking, we really need to go back and look at the molecular structure or the frequency of these substances that we're saying are doing what they're doing, because clearly the function of the substance or the function of the medical way of interpreting what's going on in the body isn't mathematical if it's not based off correct grammar, the mathematical structure of language. And then we look at logic. Logic is understanding the pros and cons. It's understanding through logic perspective. And, when you see today the art of having this conversation we're having, it's the pros and cons, your ability to take in all information, see every person's perspective. And from that, then you're going to be able to make a better decision. And then it's after the break, we'll go into the final one, which is rhetoric, which is how to speak in a way which follows the mathematical patterns of reality.
Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back. Hello, this is Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. We are back for our last segment, and we've been talking today about mindfulness and about decoding our reality. And we've been talking about the liberal arts and what those are. And like I said earlier, before the last segment, I went to a liberal arts college, and no one ever mentioned what those liberal arts are. And we've been talking a little bit about the trivium and the quadrivium and the segments of each of those aspects. And right now we're going through the trivium. We're finishing up. So it was grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And we were just about to get into what rhetoric means. So David, if you want to continue with that discussion.
Yeah. So just to recap, grammar being the mathematical structure of language. So language isn't arbitrary. Well, it's not meant to be arbitrary. So language represented the mathematics of what you were trying to get across through making this audible noise. And when we look at ancient languages like Sanskrit, which, we'll go into another time, but it's applied in supercomputing, its structure, it's known to have a mathematical structure of the language. So it makes it very easy to communicate, and it's very precise. Same as, Latin and Greek have a mathematical structure to the language. That's why we use those languages in apparently graduate education, but like I was expressing in some of my classes in medical terminology, the professor admitted, they're just throwing them together now. They're not too focused on the etymology truth. And we know when we go away from source code, when we're writing computer code, and I start writing a bunch of funky algorithms because I think they sound trendy, then my computer's not going to function. And so unfortunately, we have this situation going on, which I would expect more from a group of learned people.
And you can see the direct representation of using, or the lack of using, the source code that wrote the initial aspects of reality in society today in many ways, and how it affects the lifestyle and the flow of life. And in many ways,
go ahead, and then I have to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's the lack of using the proper coding or grammar in many ways is like a virus, and it just causes disruption.
Yeah. One thing that drives me absolutely nuts is, we've all been using these text messaging. It's almost like we don't make phone calls anymore. We just send texts. But so people started abbreviating words to send text messages to save time or whatever. And now it's gotten to the point where no one understands grammar anymore, and they start talking like they're sending a text message because they're just not speaking with proper grammar anymore. And sometimes it sounds ridiculous. And then people aren't communicating as efficiently for that reason, because it's misunderstood. What they're saying is not being understood correctly.
Exactly. Yeah. You see like the basic tools of communication are being lost. I mean, text messaging is great to get across some points and emojis and these things. But when you go to discuss something that's important, it's like the computer code. You need the whole code to be running for your program to work. If you're unable to communicate to the person with exactness of what it is you're trying to share with them, they're constantly running to error messages. And you tell someone one thing and they don't understand, or they tell you don't understand, and And all this miscommunication ends up with frustration, loss of time, loss of energy. And unfortunately, you know, when you look at the quality and level of education that's going on with basic communication, you can just turn on a TV interview on a mainstream TV show and there's not a lot of listening going on. There's not a lot of logic going on. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of grammar going on. It doesn't seem like they're both discussing to find solutions and both find out the natural laws that we're surrounded by. Originally, all our laws, the reason why God has written the Constitution so much, God in a lot of the constitutions around the world and with the writings of monarchy, is because all this quadrivium and trivium, all this came from observations of natural law. All these philosophers, these priests, these monks from all around the world, it came from observations of natural law, and our language is based off the mathematics of natural law. So going into our trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric. So logic was seeing both sides. So one thing I do love to do, I love to just go out and just listen to everything, all the people going past, the birds, the nature. They say that if you can truly, truly listen, you can understand the whole world, because the laws aren't hidden of nature and life. They're all around you. So I think the pros and cons is not closing yourself off to someone's argument. It's, you know, you see these days you bring up a very valid point that has a lot of truth. And then people may say, oh, nope, sorry, we're not here to debate the facts. We're here to tell you what we think.
Yeah, no logic at all.
Exactly. We're into kind of this dictatorship system, and then they push away truth, and then they wonder why their community around them falls apart, why their own bodies become sick, why they feel sadness. And then they say, oh, no, it's that group over there. That group's bad over there. But a lot of the time, it's not that group over there. It's they've lost their ability to understand natural law and their ability to communicate natural law, because, you know, when we have a conversation about life, or we're having a conversation with any person in a show, we're all trying to do the same inherent thing, is become whole. We're all wanting to know the things that we don't know, to refine the things we do know, to become whole and complete. So going into rhetoric, it is how to speak in a way which follows the numerical patterns of reality. So when you hear about people speaking rhetoric, it's like they're following the numerical patterns of reality. It's, if I am going down a river and the river current turns left and I try and paddle my boat to the right and the current's very strong, no matter how hard I try, I may not be able to paddle my boat to the right. And that's what happens to us as individuals and as a community if we're unable to speak with correct rhetoric. If we're not able to be honest with the expressing the numerical patterns of reality, then we have problems. It's like the situation of, you know, more debt makes you rich. You know, like these people who give out loans. It's or war makes peace. You know, they're not looking at the mathematical of these things. And when you become say you're a computer game designer, you have to use these mathematical principles. If you are building a car, if you're creating a light bulb, anything that's functional, a functional machine that we create externally outside ourselves has to follow these natural law principles and have to follow 1 + 1 is 2. And it is kind of sad that we're seeing people, and we call it sophism, where they know what they're saying doesn't follow these mathematical principles, but they're using their perceived knowledge in such a way to be able to convince other people to, you know, war is peace, buy this product. Yes, don't look at the label. It's not your right to know what's in your food.
It's not your right to know whether or not it's GMO.
Yeah. All these things will take away your right to go down to the bottom, as to break it all the way down to just arithmetic. You know, number is 1 + 1 2. So Andrew, with poker, input, processing, output. Do you see or do you can you express like any type of parallels in how these 7 systems work and decoding the mathematics of poker?
Yeah, most definitely. In poker, the trivium, I would say, is most applicable, just in terms of collecting the data, the grammar, the mathematical structure of the game, which would be, I guess, the patterns that occur. And by observing these patterns and digesting what it is that they mean and how they come to be through the logical interpretation of them, the rhetorical application of them becomes evident in seeing them recur, because there's only every situation is unique. This is undeniable, but in those situations inherently are the archetypal patterns, which are very much repetitive.
And Ryan, you're at UT. I'm sure you went to one of the top finance schools in the nation, Emory College, which promotes himself as being very liberal. I'm sure they informed you the where the liberal arts came from going to both these schools.
No, not so much. It's definitely hidden. So maybe occultic knowledge, I guess, is a better way to put it. But it's really interesting what you guys are getting on. I'm going to throw out a topic here that I can get into a lot more in my next show, and I'll have more knowledge on it because I'm reading an incredible book right now called The Sports Gene. And I think Dave and Andrew, you guys should definitely pick this up. It's by David Epstein. It's from one of my UT Master's Kinesiology classes. And it talks about how it's not like reaction times, why people are either fast or they're able to like hit baseballs. It's actually the ability to process information and recognize patterns, like being able to see the ball come out of the pitcher's hand, which is why the best baseball players in the world were unable to hit Jenny Finch, who was a softball pitcher, which made no sense to anyone. But we're at the end of the show here. We'll get more into that next week. So thank you for listening here to Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior.
Have a great week, guys.
Everyone.
Have a great one.
Everyone.